Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Saturday to you, and welcome to episode 10 of the Winged Eagle podcast. I cannot believe we are 10 episodes deep in this thing, but we are here, and I'm happy to report that my voice is all the way back to normal. Last week, I was having some issues with my voice. I was a little bit hoarse, and I also had a microphone issue in the beginning of the show that made me sound like Darth Vader for the first 2 minutes. I'm pretty sure we're all good to go now because I did all of my checks and dotted my I's and crossed my T's, and let me just see for myself to make sure I don't sound like an idiot. Rock and roll. All right, so this is a loaded episode as always. Unlike last week as well, I kind of had to shorten it to about an hour and a half. I fully expect for this to go a solid 2 hours based on my notes. It's pages and pages and pages of notes, and we got a lot to get into. So I'm going to discuss a few things in the intro here, and I'm going to give you a run through of what we're going to talk about and what order we're going to discuss things in. And I'm going to say hello to all of you that are in here in the chat as well. And make sure you subscribe and like and all that good stuff. So in this episode, everything's going to be in the ticker there, and I'm going to run through what I'm going to talk about as well, and I'm also going to talk about my upcoming schedule, what you can expect from me this week, because we have a lot going on. I'll be up here Monday, of course, for my Monday Night Live, or Monday Night Raw live stream. Then we got Crown Jewel on Thursday, which I'm going to come up and kind of do a mini review, and then a week from today, we're going to be right back up here with a Winged Eagle. After that, I'm going to have a pay-per-view review up on the channel for you guys as well. So a lot of videos upcoming on the channel. I'm going to discuss all of that here as well. Before we start discussing the topics. Another thing that is going to be a regular occurrence on this podcast from now on moving forward. Every podcast that I do, I'm going to open up and do a shout out to all of my patrons on Patreon, because this is something that I've been meaning to do for quite some time. I've shown you guys some love in the description and in the ticker and stuff like that before, but I want to try to verbally appreciate and acknowledge you guys in every single episode, because some of you have been pledging and donating for a very long time. And with very little perks, because I don't do a whole lot with the Patreon page. It's just kind of there, you know, to support the channel. And I appreciate everybody that's been supporting for years. So I want to shout out you guys first. There's only a couple of dozen current patrons right here. I've had well over 100 in years past, but some, you know, come and go. You guys know how that site can be. But I want to send a personal shout out to Blake Moran, to Michael Cuomo, and I don't think I'm pronouncing your name correctly, my friend Claudio Clavedetcher. I know I'm working on yours, John Redifer. All four of you guys have donated well over $200 lifetime pledges on Patreon. So I really appreciate your support, along with Tyron Furman, Nathan Walker, Barry Furtado. Go check out Barry MK400. He's a moderator here in this chat. He's got a YouTube channel. You can go over there and check out what he does. Dominion, Elwell Sr., Josiah Blevins, Keith Salyers, the Double Z TV. I believe your name is Zach. Jordan Carg, John Riffle, Christian Collins, Mr. Steve, Daniel Rodriguez, and Steve Myers. I want to thank you for all of your support on Patreon, and I appreciate everything you guys do. Speaking of support and donations and all of that, as usual on the podcast, any super chats that come in here, I will be answering those, all of them today. I'm going to go back and backtrack and answer a few of those at a time in between topics that we discussed. That's been the format for the first 9 episodes that we've done. Also, like I talked about, my upcoming schedule, you can expect me this Monday night for Monday Night Raw, my live Raw reaction. This coming Thursday, following Crown Jewel on Halloween, I'm going to come up and do like a short review. I don't even know how much of the pay-per-view I'm really going to watch. I'm not going to set aside my entire day to watch it. I'm going to eyeball it, read the results. Definitely want to check out some of the attraction matches on there with Brock and Kane and Tyson and Strowman. And I will come up and do some sort of a live stream on Thursday afternoon discussing Crown Jewel. So you will be able to see me on Thursday, and then I'll be up next Saturday, of course, for another Winged Eagle. And then I'm shooting for Tuesday. I'm shooting from a week from this Tuesday to drop Survivor Series 2001 classic pay-per-view review on the channel. I attended that show live, and I was smack dab on the hard cam for the whole show. And I have a lot of memories of that show in Greensboro, so I thought that would be another fun classic pay-per-view to review to do, especially considering we're in the month of November here, and Survivor Series is right around the corner. As far as today's episode, what we're going to get into, it took me forever to decide how I wanted to go about discussing all these topics. What order do I put them in? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to discuss some wrestling news first. There's a ton of it. just get into the goings-on, talk about injuries, talk about a bunch of random stuff. Then I'm going to get into AEW and the Full Gear card. Then we'll recap NXT. Then we'll backtrack all the way to Monday Night Raw and knock out Smackdown as well and preview the Crown Jewel card that comes up on this Thursday. And there's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to be discussing in between. But that's pretty much the order that you can expect here today. But before we get into the news, I'm just going to peek over here to the chat and see what we're looking at. Probably not a huge audience in here yet. Oh yeah, only less than 100 people. So yeah, if you could do me a huge favor and smash that thumbs up and tell everybody to do the same. Hello to Vontae and James and Bo and Stone Cold and Ben. And yeah, all you guys. I'm going to make sure my audio's still okay. But that's pretty... Yeah, we're good to go. Okay. Excuse me. I mean, I'm still, even though my voice is completely back to normal, I still am coughing a little bit. Had some serious throat problems last week. It was crazy. But anyway, we're going to start jumping into this news here because I have a ton of it, and I've got at least 5 or 6 pages of notes here in total. But the news is kind of interesting today, and I want to open up with a video that Barstool Sports released earlier today that shows Hulk Hogan involved in some sort of a confrontation with a fan in a hotel lobby. Have y'all seen this? I don't know where it is, what city, what they were doing, but Hogan was in the lobby. It appeared, you couldn't really tell what was going on because the camera started rolling about halfway through this confrontation, but it appeared that some fan was either bothering Hulk or giving him shit, or maybe wanted an autograph and Hogan didn't want to give him one and then he got mad. Whatever happened there, the video shows Hogan saying something along the lines of, "Hey buddy, last time I drank a Shirley Temple was when me and your wife got together." So Hogan just savagely mic drops this guy, and he basically says, like, "Do you want to take it outside?" And Hogan is holding this crutch in his hand. It looks like a weapon on a wrestling show, but I mean, it really illustrates how much of rough shape Hogan is in. You know, he can really struggles to get around. You know, he needs a crutch to even move around on his titanium hips and everything. And this guy wants to have a match at WrestleMania, so apparently this fan got in Hogan's face, and Hogan just basically told him to fuck off and threatened to fight him, and said that he hooked up with his wife. So pretty funny. I know I've been critical of Hulk in the past. I know Hogan has done some embarrassing things that I wish he wouldn't have done and things he wouldn't have said. We all know that. But based on the 30-second video, and from what I can gather from it, that fan was probably being a douche. And I did hear Hogan say something like, you know, "I'm allowed just a minute to myself," or something like that. So if I had to guess, it looked like that fan just wanted to bother him. Hogan didn't want to be bothered, and it led to a confrontation. Either way, if you haven't seen it, go up on Twitter. Go check out the Barstool Sports Twitter account, and you'll see that video on there somewhere. Pretty interesting. The news that I had planned to open before I saw that video of Hulk Hogan was this WWE 2K20 video game disaster. Now, those of you who have been following my channel throughout the years know that I am completely video game illiterate. As you can see behind me, I love retro stuff. I'm very nostalgic. I grew up with an Atari 2600. I grew up with a Nintendo, which is right there. I grew up with a Super Nintendo and a Sega Genesis. All of those consoles I have right behind me. With a ton of games, and I have the NES Mini. I've got a Retron 5. I've got a plug-and-play Atari. I've got all sorts of retro stuff. But that ended in 1993 for me. I did not play another video game beyond the Super Nintendo. Never had an N64, never had a PlayStation, never had an Xbox, never had anything. So I'm not the right person to discuss modern video games because it's so over my head. It's ridiculous. When I see games now and how they are and how they're structured and how people play them online, how they're so interactive and what a major multi-billion-dollar industry this is, I am so far behind the times. Don't listen to any of my video game opinions ever. But it's kind of hard to not notice what everybody has been saying about this WWE 2K20 game. Now, it appears to me and appears to everybody that they just released a broken game. One of my favorite pastimes of the week has been going on Twitter or social media and finding all of the glitch videos. There is some crazy glitches in this game, which to me is amusing. I just think it's hilarious how poorly this game is, and this game was produced. And it appears that obviously they probably had deadlines. The game was probably rushed. They come out with one of these games every single year, which is something that, again, I'm not qualified to comment on, but I don't understand what the differences are in 1 year. I guess, all the universe modes and the customization of games that you can do, I suppose that's the big difference in getting the new game. Otherwise, I'm still thinking it along the lines of like an NES cartridge, where if you just release another game the next year, how much different can it really be? So why do people rush to the shelves to buy this thing? Why does WWE so heavily promote these games every year? Why is it such a big deal to be on the cover? It's just like the football games, the Maddens and everything that come out every year. So I understand. It's just if a year is not enough time to produce a decent game that's just not a pile of shit that fans are paying, what, $60 for, $50 for, $70 for? I don't know how expensive these things are, but I'm assuming they're in that price range, right? What a waste of money. And I don't blame the fans for being pissed. And I think it took WWE all the way up until like a day ago to finally address it and finally issue an apology to the fans for releasing what essentially was a broken game. So those of you who play video games and are very much into that hobby, I feel for you. I'm sorry you had to put up with such a mess of a WWE game. And I mean, if things in WWE can't get bad enough, they can't even put out video games without pissing the fans off. So maybe they need to rethink how these games are coming out, or they just need to extend their deadline a little bit. And if the game's not ready, I think the fans, like, what would you say? I'm trying to think of it from a gamer's perspective if it was me. I would rather have WWE postpone the game than release a broken one. You know what I mean? So I've heard of them patching it up, and there's things they can do to fix it, which also blows my mind. I feel like once you buy a game, you buy it. I didn't know there was any fixing it. So again, that shit's way over my head. But whatever your WWE 2K20 woes are, I wish you the best in those endeavors. And yeah, that sounds like an absolute mess. Speaking of video games, WWE wrestler that is very much into video games and loves them, Xavier Woods, suffered a catastrophic injury. So sad. Torn Achilles tendon. That's no joke. Whenever you tear an Achilles, that's like an ACL. That's like a neck. You're talking a year rehab, and he's going to be out for a long time. And the only silver lining in that is that I was looking at and checking out Xavier Woods' Twitter page, and I don't even mean this as a knock or a criticism at all, but it seems to me that he might be slightly cool with being off the road for a little while. He says he's going to keep himself busy. He's got lots of streaming to do, lots of video games to do. He showed video footage of right after his surgery, putting together a walking boot. He seems to be in extremely high spirits, and he might be happy to be like, you know what? I can fucking rest finally. I mean, I don't recall him being injured too many times, and I don't recall him missing too much time since the New Day formed. How many years ago now? So he might be due for some time off. It almost seems like he's low-key cool with being injured, just so he can chill out for a while. And I wish him nothing but the best, man. I hope he has the time of his life. I hope he has a great year. I hope he expands his horizons. I hope he continues to do all of the things that he enjoys doing, and he does not have to endure just the rigors of that horrendous schedule that WWE lays in front of all of their talents, to the point when they do get injured, some of them probably are pretty happy about it. So best of luck to Xavier Woods. Hope he can come back 100% on that. The only wrestler in recent times that I can think of that suffered an Achilles injury was Edge. Edge had that, and he was out close to a year. I think that's when he returned, maybe at the Royal Rumble or something, and won that back in, how good is my memory here? 2010? Am I right on that? Kobe Bryant, famously as well, near the end of his career, ruptured his Achilles as well, and he was able to come back. But once you have that injury, I think it's really hard to come back at 100% and be exactly who you were before. And Xavier wrestles a very athletic style, so hopefully when his rehab is all done, he can come back and hopefully be better than ever. But that's, as an athlete, that's not an injury you really want to have. Speaking of tag teams in WWE, well, actually, let's stay on the topic of the New Day, because we're going to talk about them in a minute, or later on, I should say, when we talk about Smackdown. They're going to get tag team title shot next week. It looks like Big E and Kofi are going to be staying together. And what do you guys think in terms of the future of the New Day? Do you think that they remain together until Xavier comes back, or WWE just cannot wait that long and they decide to move Big E on to maybe a heel turn or maybe split them up? Or do you just wait it out and do some epic return by Xavier Woods, maybe have him return to the New Day and then turn heel on them? Because think about it. If Xavier's got a torn Achilles and he rehabs. I mean, he's young, he's an athlete, he'll be fine, but maybe he can't do all of the high-flying moves he was used to do on a rehabbed injury like that. So if you turn him heel, maybe his style can somewhat change. Maybe he can be a little bit more ground-based than he currently is, just being a heel and being a, methodical, punishing heel, Maybe you can wait that long and do that and just do some big swerve. But in the meantime, Big E and Kofi appear to be staying together, and I have a really strong feeling, based on some of the tweets that we've seen from Randy Orton and the Revival, that the Revival are going to be coughing up those tag straps to the New Day next week on Smackdown. I just feel like that's going to happen. And like I said, speaking of tag teams, TMZ released the dash cam footage of Jimmy Uso's DUI arrest from a few months ago. Now, we heard about this. It's getting old with this guy because both brothers have been in trouble, but this is like the third DUI that this guy has had, and he doesn't seem to learn at all, and the dash cam footage just shows him very casually speeding down the road, swerving, cop pulls him over, he gets out of the car. He's not combative or anything like that. He's just cool. He's pretty much... he's lying. He's like, oh, I had one beer like 2 hours ago or something, which is bullshit. And the cop's like, is there any reason that you were changing lanes and swerving? And he's like, nah, man. He's like, is there any reason that you were going 20 miles over the speed limit? Nah, man. You would think that after the trouble that he's already been in, been arrested, had his career being threatened by getting in all this trouble, putting his brother in a horrible position, risking and compromising his job and status with WWE, you would think that after that, after he's gotten off of those previous violations, that he would be a little bit more careful. But he literally doesn't seem like he gives a fuck. No matter how many times he gets arrested, he still goes out and drinks. Somebody with all of his money, who probably makes a pretty fair amount of money, and I would assume could likely afford an Uber. That is if he's going somewhere and going home. But if he's on the road and drinking, that's even worse, if he's traveling. So not a good look for him. It just was not a very good video. The only saving grace is that he wasn't crazy and he didn't try to fight the cop or anything like that. But it just goes to show how stupid, honestly, he is. And I hope WWE starts implementing something in their wellness policy agreements or their arrangements that tie in alcohol-related offenses. I know you're a private contractor, you're responsible for your own actions, but 3 DUIs is not good, especially when you're putting lives at risk, and there should be something in there to at least try to deter your talent from drinking and driving. It should not be hard for them not to, but they continue to do it anyway, especially in modern times. I've been driving since the early 90s. There was no Uber. Nowadays, how easy it is to touch your phone and have a car show up 5 minutes later. There's no excuse. There's no excuse ever. There's never been an excuse, even in the 70s and 80s. And there's definitely not an excuse now. So if I'm Jimmy Uso, if I'm any WWE wrestler, and I'm lucky enough to have my dream job, I'm lucky enough to make money and do what I've always dreamed of doing for a living, the least I can do is keep my nose clean, But some of these guys, man, I'll tell you. And as soon as I'm done reading all this wrestling news, I'm going to go into here to the chat and catch up the super chats, which I know we've had a couple of roll in here, and very low audience. We had an awesome audience in here last week, so this is only about a third of what we had in here last week. So hopefully those will pick up as we go here. I also want to talk about Seth Rollins, because Seth Rollins, it seems like every week, is making waves on social media. He's saying something that's pissing off the fans. The fans always say that he doesn't. My favorite thing about the fans' complaints about Seth Rollins is they complain that he says stupid things on Twitter and he comes off looking bad, when in all actuality, even though that's not necessarily untrue, Seth is only acting exactly the way everybody else acts on Twitter. You have people that act exactly like Seth Rollins does, then he acts that way back and they're pissed. And think about it. I put this on Twitter last week. Think about in this AEW and NXT war. Think about the insane fans you've seen on both sides of this. Both sides. Think about the preposterous shit that comes out of the mouth of hardcore AEW fans. And think about the preposterous shit that comes out of the hardcore WWE fans. I mean, that is some Category 5 insanity right there. And Seth calling AEW minor leagues is what gets you pissed? Bitch, please. Give me a break. What Seth Rollins did. Now, I agree that in the past, Seth Rollins has not looked good on social media. He said some things that, maybe the bank, everybody's so mad about the bank account comment, which I've seen YouTubers bragging about their bank accounts, and then they're going to get mad at Seth for saying the same thing. Give me a break. So that wasn't maybe the smartest thing for Seth as a babyface to tweet to Will Ospreay back in the day. Fair enough, no problem. But this latest Seth Rollins screw up in the eyes of the fans is that he simply called All Elite Wrestling the minor leagues. That's what WWE guys have been calling their competition for years. Back in the day, they always referred to WCW as the minor leagues. Even when Hogan and Savage and Hall and Nash jumped, they still would refer to WCW as the minor leagues. Still, Stone Cold Steve Austin, famously. So in case you want to say, well, babyfaces shouldn't act like that. Here's an example for you. Austin was on Howard Stern. And this was right after Goldberg. He appeared on the Jay Leno show. And remember when Goldberg challenged Stone Cold on Jay Leno, like in 1998? WCW champion challenging Austin, right? Austin then goes on Howard Stern, pretty sure it was Howard Stern, and responds to this. And they're like, what is this guy that challenged you on Jay Leno? And he's like, that's, he works for the minor league company WCW. He's basically WCW's version of me. And he goes, maybe if he said exactly what Seth Rollins said, because Seth Rollins was talking about Kenny Omega when he mentioned AEW being minor leagues. They said the exact same thing here. The exact same thing. Exactly. Listen to this. Austin says, whenever Goldberg wants to graduate from the minor leagues, I'll be happy to take him on. If he wants to come up here to WWE where the stars are, I'll be happy to have that match. But, he's got to graduate from the minor leagues first. That's exactly what Seth Rollins said about Kenny Omega. Exactly. He said, if Kenny Omega stops playing around in the minor leagues, I'd love to have that match at WrestleMania, or whatever he said, right? Everybody flips out. Fans literally shit their pants. Jim Ross even responds to Seth Rollins and says, maybe one day you'll be as over as your girlfriend, which, interestingly enough, he says that on a podcast. And the t-shirt of that saying, maybe one day you'll be over as your girlfriend, gets released at the same time that the podcast does. So it's not like he said it, the fans thought it was awesome, and then they made a t-shirt of it. It was strategically planned and premeditated. So this is totally normal stuff to take place between two companies. You're going to have Seth Rollins saying something that the fans aren't going to consider very true, and you're going to have Jim Ross doing the same thing. You're going to have a lot of this back and forth. That's healthy competition, and Seth Rollins, nobody's going outwardly out of their way to be malicious. Seth Rollins didn't say, Kenny Omega's a worthless piece of shit who can't lace my boots. No, he said, I'll be happy to have a match with him when he wants to come over to the big leagues. That's what Seth is supposed to say. That's what has always been said throughout history of competition. And I understand WCW closed its doors 18 years ago. Some of you might not remember this. Well, let me refresh you, or let me educate you. This happened all the time. And you had WWE, when WCW was kicking WWE's ass, murdering them in the ratings, WWE would still be on TV claiming that they were the bigger company and WCW was minor leagues, because that's what you're supposed to do. So if Seth Rollins is going to be an idiot and say something stupid, then I'll be right there with all of you criticizing him. But as far as this goes, give me a break. I would have so much more respect for fans if they would just say, I don't like Seth Rollins, or something like that. But they try to pretend, he doesn't really come off very well. I'm like, bitch, whatever. Everybody back in the Attitude Era, everybody during the WCW and WWE war said a million times worse shit than this. And things that were very, very much untrue. Like Goldberg and Austin. Austin calling WCW minor leagues was untrue. Now, by that point, WWE was beating WCW, but that had just started. They were getting their asses handed to them for 83 weeks in a row, just a couple of months prior to this Austin interview. So what he said wasn't any less true than what Seth said. So I just think fans need to just relax and understand that you're going to have this back and forth between your top talent on both shows, and that's healthy. That's fun, as long as it doesn't get too overwhelming, which is what I'm going to talk about here in a minute when I talk about CM Punk. As long as it doesn't become what both companies feed off of and it becomes their primary focus. AEW just focusing so hard on WWE, that was TNA's problem. I think TNA, the reason Impact is hanging on by a thread now is because of the previous company, TNA, being so obsessed with WWE. If they would have just scaled that back a little bit, And, as Jim Ross says, dance with what brung you. I think they could be just as big as they were in 2007 right now. But they fucked it up. So hopefully AEW doesn't make the same mistake. And I don't think WWE will. And whenever you have this little back and forth between pieces of talent, I like that. That's fun to see. That's interesting to watch. So I want to see more of that. And I don't think it's, I don't know why the fans would get so mad about Seth Rollins. Get over yourself. But also I want to talk about CM Punk, who talked about this as well. He stated recently that, I think he did an interview. I forgot who he did an interview with. I didn't write it down. I'm so sorry. But he had stated recently that AEW should concentrate on themselves. He said they should worry. He says they should worry more about themselves and not be so concerned with what WWE is doing. I agree, but I think like I said, a little healthy back and forth is fun. You need that in competition. You can't have both brands ignore each other. But there's a line there. You also can't have both brands being obsessed with each other. There's got to be a middle ground there. And I think what AEW is doing is not overwhelming. I like the little shot that Cody Rhodes took at them last week. I've liked a couple of shots that Jericho has taken against WWE, talking about bad creative and shit like that. So CM Punk, I think, is a little misunderstood if he thinks that AEW is obsessed with WWE. They are not at all. They do not appear to be that way to me at all. Yes, they make a few snide comments here or there, but that's good. You want that. You want them to acknowledge the other brand, and say, that we're your competition. Now, as long as they don't structure every single segment and every single match and every single minute of their TV show reacting to what WWE does, then they're going to be fine, provided they don't cross that line. But a few shots back and forth here or there is great, and it's good for the fans. It's fun for us to see that. All the rabid WWE haters out there, how hard their little 1-inch dicks get anytime AEW takes a shot at WWE, and on the other side of that coin, whenever WWE wants to make fun of AEW, fans get all excited. It's fun. It creates, competition and it creates buzz. The problem is it usually treads into the toxic territory to where you have fans, just rabidly and ferociously at each other's throats. You stupid fucking dumb, all that shit you read on social media. Instead of just having fun, instead of enjoying the competition and standing up for your brand, you have people taking it to an absurdly idiotic level. So as long as AEW does not become the fans and become so crazy like they are, they're going to be just fine. And I think a few little shots here or there at WWE is fun, and it's good for us. So Punk is right, and Punk is wrong. I agree with Punk that AEW should not be obsessed with WWE, but I don't think they are. So it's more, like I said, it's more the audience. As a matter of fact, I wanted to mention this because I was getting ready for this podcast last night. I was watching some AEW clips on All Elite Wrestling's YouTube channel. And I shit you not, basically in any video that they have, you scroll down to the comments, 50% of the comments contain the letters WWE in them. And I think that is where it's unhealthy. That's where CM Punk is right. CM Punk should be directing this at the fans, not at All Elite Wrestling. Because an All Elite Wrestling fan cannot watch an entertaining segment on All Elite Wrestling without mentioning WWE. So if anybody out there is obsessed with WWE, it's them, not AEW. So I think their fans should start concentrating more on AEW. If they're so behind this brand, and this is the brand that they want to see and provides them the best wrestling, then watch it and shut your mouth. WWE, if WWE sucks so bad, you shouldn't even think about them. You should watch AEW and AEW only, and when you comment on an AEW video and something entertaining that you saw, you should comment on that. But the constant mentioning of WWE is unhealthy, guys. It just is. I just can't imagine having that mindset because I'm not like that. If I'm watching something entertaining, I'm not going down in the comments and telling people how much more entertaining it is than something else. Well, that has nothing to do with it, really. So I just think the fans, if they really enjoy AEW so much, try to enjoy it and see how long you can keep the letters WWE out of your mouth. If WWE is such a disaster, if WWE is such a broken company, which it is, I'm not going to lie, and that company upsets you and pisses you off to the level that it does, and you're not a YouTuber or podcaster like me who pretty much has to watch it, and you're just a regular fan, you should never even speak the letters WWE. You should never even talk about the company at all. You should have no reason to. So that's the type of thing that CM Punk, when he says that, he's exactly right. But I think that applies more to the audience than to the promotion itself, because so far what I've seen AEW do has been completely harmless. And the shots that they've taken at WWE have been fun. I love Cody smashing the Triple H throne with the sledgehammer, and the few little shots the talent has taken on the mic has all been in good fun, if you ask me. And speaking of good fun, down the line, AEW could get some major stars. So there's Randy Orton and the Revival all during the week have been tweeting out shit, teasing that they might be jumping to AEW when their contracts are up in 2020. Randy Orton's contract is up in the summer. Revival's contract, I'm not sure when they're up, but they have not yet signed a deal. And Orton had put on Instagram or Twitter this past week a picture of him in an airport or whatever with a sign on a door that said Elite. And he took a selfie and he had the caption TikTok, TikTok, alluding to the fact that his contract is coming up and he could be jumping ship. Well, the Revival chime in, be like, yeah, we'll see you there, brother, or we'll be back together again one day. So the three of them are all teasing leaving. Now, this could mean a couple of things. It could be bargaining leverage. Randy Orton's a WWE homebred guy through and through. So for him to leave would be pretty shocking, but he's in the late stage of his career. He might not enjoy the traveling so much. He's got a family now. Maybe he's looking to make decent money and work a very, very easy schedule, as he would with All Elite Wrestling. So I would love to see All Elite Wrestling snag a name like him. You know, maybe in the end, he's just teasing and he's going to stay right where he is and he has no desire to leave WWE. Maybe this is a way to get a few more bucks out of them, or maybe it's a way just to excite the audience, you know, and he has no plans on leaving. But I actually kind of hope that he does, because the Revival have been treated like shit. They've already asked for the release once. They're currently tag team champions, and I'm almost certain, based on those tweets, that they're going to be taking those titles off of them this Friday or next Friday on Smackdown. And I hope all three guys don't sign their contracts. I think that would be great for All Elite Wrestling to snag them, especially if they go over there. You know, Randy Orton, if he were to jump to AEW, I seriously doubt he would get on the mic and drop some sort of a pipe bomb on WWE. What the fuck does Randy Orton have to bitch about? He's a 87-time world champion. WWE, aside from Cena, was really shoving him down our throats for many years as well. And I always thought Randy Orton was money. I liked him from the minute I saw him. Thought he was smooth in the ring, great third-generation guy, big fan of Ace and of Bob Sr., and loved the family. And a lot of fans just shit on him. Why? Because WWE pushes him and whatever, you know. But he had talent. He had the look. He had everything you would want in a wrestler. There was really no reason not to push him. But they were basically trying to make him and Cena the next Rock and Austin, and that just wasn't going to fly with this audience. So overall, Randy Orton has been treated very well in WWE and has even been given titles and world championship reigns when the fans, that's the last thing they want to see. So Randy Orton doesn't really have a reason to leave and complain because he's been treated like shit and he's frustrated and he wants out. But the Revival do. So if they were to go over there and form some sort of a faction or a group and you give the Revival a live microphone, yeah. So I'm hoping next year, just for the sake of competition, just for the sake of the AEW and NXT war, I want Randy Orton and the Revival to jump. I hope they do. And I hope a few more people follow him, because that's good. That's what we need. I'll take a sip of water because my throat is a little messed up. And then I'm almost done with the wrestling news, and then I will catch up these super chats. Again, good to see you in your How Wheezy and some mods. There we go. All right. Cool. I'll answer those in a second. Speaking of AEW, I want to talk about Jake Hager. He had his Bellator fight last night against Anthony Garrett. It was ruled a no contest when Jake apparently just kneed the guy in the balls a couple of times and he couldn't continue. So he wasn't disqualified. He didn't lose the match or anything like that. It was just thrown out. It was basically thrown out because Garrett couldn't continue. So he's still undefeated. And it's a good thing he didn't lose that, because I said going into this fight, I'm like, man, the way they're presenting Hager as the Inner Circle's muscle, you know, as their big MMA fighter who can kick anybody's ass, and he just debuted on TV like 3 weeks ago. They don't want him to lose right now. He needs to win this fight. So the fact that he didn't win isn't good, but the fact that he, need the guy in the balls, maybe it actually adds to his character a little bit of being that kind of roughhouse type of guy. So I don't think it hurt him at all, but I hope he has another fight soon, and I hope he wins it, just to give him more of that Brock rub, because he's undefeated, and he's still going to remain that way despite the low blow. So I was really hoping that Jake would pull off a victory there. You had Inner Circle guys there. I know Sammy Guevara, and I think who else? Santana and Ortiz might have been there. Don't think Jericho was there, but they were all at ringside for Hager's fight. And we got a no contest out of that, so that kind of sucks. We also had another really great and soothing episode of NWA Power this past Tuesday. I love this show. And I put on Twitter, and I even exchanged a couple of tweets with Dave Lagana, which is really cool. Really hoping I can get into that NWA intro one week. But what I like the most about this show is it really just acts as a palate cleanser. Think about how much day-to-day nonsense we deal with in modern wrestling, like I just discussed with the AEW and NXT war that's currently going on, and this rabid, toxic environment of batshit nut fans, and there's so much of that going on, and WWE disappoints us like literally on a daily basis. Social media is not fun. The fans are crazy. It's such a mess. And then you turn on YouTube, you go over to the NWA YouTube channel, you pull up NWA Power, and you're like, oh, I can relax. It's so simple. They are keeping everything there's no reason to really hate this product. It's an hour long. It's easy to watch. It's extremely simplistic. It's nostalgic. It's really kind of going back to how it used to be, because wrestling is so overexposed now and so in your face and so overproduced that something like this really helps you catch your breath. It's kind of a weird analogy, but if there's like a big nuclear explosion, like let's say humanity just drives itself into annihilation, which is probably going to happen. Hopefully we'll all be dead before that does. But eventually humanity and the human race is going to get to a point where we are going to annihilate ourselves, and we're going to be put right back to the dark ages. We're going to be building our own fires, killing our own food, no electricity, shitting in the woods, the whole deal, right? So I feel like that's almost where we're at with wrestling. Wrestling's so crazy. There's so much out there, so much content. AEW, Raw, Smackdown, NXT, NXT UK, New Japan, tons and tons of indie promotions, Impact, Ring of Honor, wrestling literally on every single night of the week. I feel like it's a nuclear explosion of wrestling that's inevitably going to destroy it, leaving us with the bare bones, leaving us having to retreat to move forward kind of thing, like going back to the way things used to be and wiping the slate clean and starting from scratch. And that's kind of the feeling that NWA Power gives me. It's just a differently presented product, and someone like me who grew up in the Carolinas and studio wrestling was my jam. I was on all the time, and I have fond memories of that and how different it was and what a simpler time it was in terms of how I perceived wrestling as a fan. I could get behind characters more. I wasn't critical of the booking or the decision that was made or why they put the belt on this guy and why they booked that finish and why they booked this finish. I just watched it and liked it. And so far, that's all I've done with NWA Power. I have not once looked at a promo or looked at a match and critiqued it. Oh, maybe they should have done it this way, or that was bad booking, or that was a bad promo, or whatever. I just watch it, and I shut up, and I'm quiet, and I feel like I catch my breath. And I told you guys every single week, I'm not going to run through the entire show's results, but I want to show NWA Power love every single week on this podcast, because I think it is exactly what we need. If you just want to stay in the realm of wrestling, but get away from the madness, that's the show for you. And like I said, it's an hour. And it's extremely easy to watch it. I haven't even had to fast forward through anything. The matches are simple. The promos are simple. Aaron Stevens was hysterical on this past week's episode out there in his Captain Morgan outfit. Captain Morgan chant from the crowd. Showed a hilarious vignette of like a pirate ship or something. He is so ridiculously entertaining. It almost makes you mad how badly WWE fucked him up. And how badly they fuck everything up, which we'll talk about here soon when I discuss Shorty G. So the show is just a positive corner of the wrestling industry that we can go to and escape the negativity. And like I said last week, as long as Jim Cornette keeps his craziness out of there, I think NWA can be a really fun, safe space, so to speak, for wrestling fans that are just tired of the nonsense. So kudos to all the people involved there. I'm hoping, Billy Corgan, Dave Lagana, Cornette, the producers there, the wrestlers, the workers, and the production crew, keep it up, man. Keep it up. I would love, next time I'm in the East Coast, I would love to shoot down there and check out a show, because I think it would be a really interesting experience. Because even though I watched a lot of studio wrestling growing up, I never went to one. So that might actually be a fun thing to do. But like I said, if you have not checked out that show, you really need to. It's a hoot. And especially those wacky commercials. That's one of the tweets I put up that NWA retweeted. They do these funny, almost like blow-away diet commercials in between. Very Southpaw wrestling looking stuff. And the one last week was invisible hair cream. 1 minute you have hair and it's all in the way. You rub the cream on your hair and the hair disappears. Doesn't fall out, it just disappears. And so I made a little advertisement telling them that, hey, it works. Here's a picture of me with hair, and here's a picture of me without it. There you go. So if you haven't seen any of those funny little commercials, check those out too. They're hysterical. The last little piece of news I have before I'm going to get into these caught up super chats here is and I'm not going to tell you what it is. And please be cool in the chat, because you might have people that actually get mad about something like this. I don't think you guys will really care if you're spoiled, but I still want to be mindful of that, and I don't want to spoil you. A major spoiler went down at the Impact tapings. So if you're interested to find out what that is, just look it up. Google Impact spoiler. Nobody in the chat needs to tell you. Everybody has Google. Everybody knows how to use their phone. If you want to know what happened, look it up, and you can find out. All right, let's go into these super chats here and answer a few of these before I get into our AEW Dynamite from this past Wednesday. Stone Cold, 10X. Thank you, brother. Thank you, brother, for the $5. 2K broke away from the studio ukes that help make WWE games since Here Comes the Pain. That sums it up in a nutshell. Okay, so it might have to do with the gaming company and all of that. I know there's lots of reasons. To me, it feels like it's a deadline thing. If you have to release a game every year and it's not ready, you release it anyway. It seems like what they did. But thank you, Stone Cold, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Spectra, thanks for the $5 as well. Just got here what I miss. Remember when Bayley did Finn's entrance when he was hurt in NXT? Yeah, I do. Then Finn turns heel right after Bayley, makes you think. I didn't think about that. That's right. Balor and Bayley are homies, right? And now they've both recently turned heel. I don't think they're going to have anything to do with each other, but it is kind of cool that they did tend to, or they did turn heel at the same time. Was that all I had for the super chats? I think it is. And again, I apologize if I miss anybody else. I'm trying to keep an eye on these. Still a really low audience in here today, so if y'all can smash that thumbs up with me, or for me, I'd really appreciate it. The audio of this podcast will be up later tonight. I'm going to have to leave for work right after this, but when I get home, I'll put the audio up on my website and release it to the podcast sites listed above, and you can check that out then. So just be patient there, and hopefully all y'all in here today on the live stream get first dibs on this. All right, let's talk about AEW Dynamite. They're in my notes next. Now, we'll talk about the ratings first. They did dip below 1 million viewers this week. They're down to 963,000, down from the 1.014 they had last week. Now, I had mentioned that even though these ratings continue to slide, I feel like they got to stop soon. I feel like AEW should be in that 900,000 to 1.1 range. Maybe 800,000 to 1.1. Somewhere in there. Is what they should try to do every week. So this was a small decrease, but not too bad. They did go under 1 million viewers, but they still beat NXT rather significantly. And the show was good. I'm trying to think if I never even really gave both shows a final grade. I was really close. I mean, I might give the slight nod to NXT this week just because the great swerve at the end there, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But AEW still had an amazing show. I'll just kind of blow through some of the results here, some of the highlights of it. We had the 2 tag team semifinal matches. Private Party taking on the Lucha Brothers. Great match fucking great. And I knew that I was looking forward to this ever since last week. So I knew that when these two hooked up, it was going to be a fun match. And I was expecting Lucha Brothers to win because I feel like they've been telegraphing the Lucha Brothers and SCU final. So not that surprising here that they went over, but man, was this match good. Better than Jurassic Express last week, and plus last week sparked the great Marco Stunt debate of 2019. This week is a little different. You had two bona fide tag teams in here going at it, and just some crazy shot. Fucking Ray Phoenix, that one dive, I think it was Phoenix, that one dive, he does this running at full speed suicide dive through the ropes where he literally lands in the ramp. I've never seen anybody do a dive that aggressively before. The dude is crazy. This match was filled with crazy spots from top to bottom. Lucha Brothers won in the end with a double stomp package pile driver move, which is just sick, and got the victory there in a super fun match. But again, one that was kind of predictable. Figured that they would definitely pick up the win there. SCU got the victory over the Dark Order as well. Now, no surprise there that SCU is going to win, and this is one part of AEW that I don't like. I do not like this Dark Order team. I don't know what they're trying to do. They look so weird, and I don't know who all these like shirtless guys in gimp masks are that come out there with them. They're basically like, I don't know, creepy druids or something. I think they should like dim the lights or something when these guys come out. It just looks like a really strange, creepy type of gimmick. They look like a Dollar Tree version of the War Raiders. Just don't like the team. Don't think they look good. Don't think they're very credible. And probably one of the worst looking teams in the company, even though I know they have a history and a track record. Just not a fan of the gimmick at all. So I'm very happy that it looks like it's going to be Lucha Brothers and SCU, right? In the finals. I think SCU is going to win these titles. I feel like it's going to be them because Lucha Brothers jumped him a couple weeks ago, injured Daniels. And that's when Scorpio Sky kind of took his place and the whole deal. So I feel like that's really going to have to be where you go. And I'd put SCU over. I'd give them the titles. Why the hell not? You know, the Young Bucks got knocked out of the tournament. Next best team after them would definitely be Lucha Brothers. And some say they're the best team in the world. So let's beat them and give SCU a big win here. Make them the first ever AEW Tag Team Champions, which would make sense considering some of their history with some of the executives in that company. But I am glad the Dark Order lost. They're weird. I don't like them at all. Kenny Omega took on Joey Janela as well. Janela, much like Marco Stunt, delivered a hell of a lot of offense here on Kenny Omega and had him nearly beaten a couple of times, couple of near falls. Really good match here. Just solid match on the show in the end. Omega was able to hit the V-trigger and nail the one-winged angel for the win there. Good match. In probably the best segment I've seen in a while. I don't know, maybe all year, but in a while. We got Cody Rhodes going to be interviewed in the ring with Tony Schiavone. Now, earlier on, this was great. The Inner Circle shows up. They got tickets. All of them. They got tickets. They're walking through the crowd. They walk all the way up to a luxury box where they're just watching the show. They're eating popcorn, all that shit. And Cody comes out thinking he's going to have an interview with Tony Schiavone. He should have known better. Like he's going to be able to talk with these fuckwads up in the luxury box. He can't even get a word out. They're interrupting him with air horns. Somehow they've got a house mic up there, which I wasn't aware that if you bought a luxury box, it comes equipped with a mic. That's pretty cool. Next time I go to a wrestling event, I'm going to get me a box and cut a promo. But anyway, they're interrupting Cody. They won't let him do anything. Cody, he starts to threaten to come into the crowd and go up there and kick their asses. And Jericho's like, what are you going to do? There's 4 of us. Only 4, not 5, because Jake Hager wasn't there. He was prepping for his Bellator fight. So it was only Jericho, Sammy, and Santana and Ortiz. So they're goading Cody to come up there. Yeah, bring it on. There's only 1 of you and there's 4 of us. And then out comes Dustin. Dustin hits the ramp, and that makes 2. And after that, MJF comes out. Okay, that makes 3. And you're like, holy shit, who's the 4th person going to be? Or I think he was the 4th person. I might have the wrong order here. But he brings out DDP, which is awesome. I love DDP. Great to see him. But he's the one joining Cody's group there to go up to Jericho's box. I don't know. What would you guys say if, what do we get mad about WWE for when they bring out legends and shit? You know what I mean? So not a big deal, though. They go up to the luxury box. They're standing behind the door. Jericho won't let them in. And Cody punches the glass through the door. Now, what is it with this company and this TV show and glass? What is this, week 4? And we've already had 2 weeks where glass has been involved. Moxley DDT'd Omega through the table, and now Cody punches out the glass window, getting to Chris Jericho. They brawl out to the concession stand, which is great. They're brawling in the arena, a spot that we see on WWE TV all the time. But what made this segment so good was Jericho. Jericho is carrying everything right now. He is just fantastically selling and screaming about this attack, and he's holding up his tickets. We've got tickets. I've got tickets. He's crying. Security's holding him back. He's so mad. His hair's messed up. He is selling the shit out of it. It reminded me, I put up the Twitter post. It reminded me of Wayne's World. You know, when they get the backstage passes to Alice Cooper and they're going through backstage areas, showing everybody their passes. That's what it reminded me of. So just Jericho's performance alone made this such an entertaining segment. And it easily would have been the segment of the week had Balor not done what he did. But I love that. Great build up to the match. You know, they didn't go too outside the box there. They didn't get too creative. We've seen people in luxury boxes before. We've seen brawls in the concession stands before. That's not uncommon. But the way it was pulled off and executed, and Jericho making the whole segment, was pure gold. I was laughing my ass off, and man, Jericho's a star. I wish I could rewind 30 years and Jericho would be 30 years younger. You know, I wish we could get another 30 years of Chris Jericho, because it's sad that he's in this stage of his career. But let's enjoy him while he can, because he is a national fucking treasure. I know he's Canadian, but we're claiming him. We also had the Young Bucks over the Best Friends, despite the interference from Orange Cassidy. So Orange Cassidy came out and hit a couple of really nasty shin kicks on the Bucks. Little half-assed thumbs up. But despite that interference, Young Bucks picked up the victory there. Britt Baker got a nice tune-up win and essentially a squash. And the main event was a little bit interesting because I think it went off the air before it was supposed to. It was Moxley versus Pac, goes to a time limit draw, which I was fine with. You know, this is another thing that I saw some fans complaining about. And from the perspective of somebody that watched wrestling in the 80s and a little bit of the 70s as well, there was a time when wrestling fans wouldn't get mad about a non-finish. There was a time when time limit draws were exciting. There was. You know, sometimes it's not always bad to do a non-finish. It probably was the best thing for both of these guys going into Full Gear, especially Pac, who I think had took a loss in a tag match last week, right? So that was, you know, your main event this week. They both have huge matches at the next pay-per-view. Moxley and Omega and Pac and Hangman, I think. Or who the hell is Pac wrestling? Pac is wrestling Hangman. So it wasn't like anything to get upset about. And the fact that it went to a time limit means you can set up a return. The fact that it went to a time limit is cool because AEW does time limits, and they're making a big deal about time limits and announcing how much time is left in a match and shit. So sooner or later, you're going to have a draw somewhere. And this is not something that upset me at all. In terms of keeping both guys strong and their star power remaining intact, I got no issue with a draw here. And they can always do the match again. Eventually, they will do this match again and we'll have a winner. But for a draw for one night, no big deal. So I hope no fans were bitching about that, but I know how fans are. You know, it's one thing to do a finish like you did at Hell in the Cell with Seth and Bray. That was stupid. But just a regular, good old-fashioned draw, what's wrong with that? You want wrestling to make sense, right? We have no contests in MMA and boxing all the time. We have ties in football. Why can't you have one in wrestling? It's not that odd. It's not that crazy. So I don't think it's bad booking. I don't think it's lazy booking. I think it's just something that you're going to have to do from time to time. Not a big deal. But anyway, the show basically goes off the air with Moxley talking into the camera. He's like, oh, this is bullshit. Time limit draw. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? And the show goes off the air. Word is that Kenny was actually supposed to come out there, but they just didn't have time for it. So after the match, show goes off the air. All Elite Wrestling posted a video on their YouTube page of this whole thing continuing, where Pac attacks Moxley from behind, puts Moxley's head in a chair, and he's about to Pillmanize his neck. And that's when Omega comes out and saves him. Saves Jon Moxley, pulls the chair off of his head, and runs off Pac. And Omega and Moxley kind of have that little stare down there. And Jim Ross is narrating, say, you know, hey, I want to beat you at your best. So you've had Moxley save Omega once, and now you've had Omega save Moxley once. This is a stark contrast to where they were a few weeks ago, putting each other's heads through glass coffee tables, which is, in my mind, attempted murder. Now you're saving each other. So what I think is going to wind up happening here is maybe a Kenny heel turn down the road. I know there's some tension with him and Hangman Page that was displayed on Being the Elite. Somebody's going to turn at some point here, and with Kenny and Mox, almost it feels like they're starting to turn the corner to where they're having this like mutual respect for each other. Like they wanted to kill each other, and now they've been battling so hard that after this grueling match they have at Full Gear, I think they're going to wind up having respect for each other and maybe even forming some sort of an alliance. So if you get to that point, you have Kenny Omega turn after this match or whatever, it feels like they could be going in that direction, considering that both guys went from wanting to murder each other to no longer wanting to murder each other anymore. So just a thought. I also have not checked out very much of AEW Dark, only a few matches here and there. Was very cool to see Taz as the guest commentator on this past week's episode. Just good to hear his voice. I've always liked Taz, and he was a good fit there. I'd like to see more of him and have him be brought back in some capacity somewhere. Welcome back, Taz. Speaking of Full Gear, we'll run through that card as well. I only have 5 matches written down for Full Gear. Or I'm sorry, 4. And I think we may have a couple more, obviously, coming. We've got Cody versus Jericho for the title, of course. Moxley versus Omega. Hangman Page versus Pac. The Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. And there's talk of doing Darby Allin and Jake Hager. That would be a weird match. And I'm sure we're going to get a title defense by Riho. But aside from that, I don't know what they're going to add to this pay-per-view other than a couple of buy-in matches or kickoff matches, maybe a battle royal or something like that, and probably an additional tag match or two. Wouldn't be surprised. But that's what we're looking at for Full Gear. That comes up on November 9th. I will be home to watch that. I'm going to purchase the pay-per-view. I'm going to watch it, and I will be reviewing it after the show. So it won't be a live reaction, but I will come up and do a review of Full Gear. Should be fun. Before we move on to NXT, let me just peek back over here to the chat. We're looking good. All right. Very strange audience this week. Last week we had like 400 people in here. Now we only have 130. So hopefully these will beef up as the weekend goes on here. I want to talk about NXT next. Now we'll talk about the ratings for NXT. They are also down. They did not fall as far as AEW, but they are still down. They're down to 698,000, down from 712 last week. So small decrease. They've now dipped below 700,000, and AEW has dipped below 1 million. But still, AEW is winning by a pretty substantial margin. So looks like both companies are going to be hovering around these ratings, give or take, for the next few weeks. But hopefully this downward trend stops, because each show, since the head-to-head matchup started, has gone down in the ratings. So hopefully this levels off and plateaus sooner rather than later. I wouldn't imagine either company really wants to be lower than this, but whatever, right? Should I talk about the matches first or some of the news I have involving NXT? Let's talk about the matches. We had Rhea Ripley and Bianca Belair opening up the show in a really good match, but when you're comparing it to All Elite Wrestling's opener blew NXT's out of the water. And I love Rhea Ripley. She's my girl. I want her to beat Shayna Baszler. I think she will. But when you compare the two, I'm giving the nod to AEW for the better opening match. And another cool thing I liked about Dynamite is that they opened the show with all of the combatants in the ring of the tag match. No intro, no fireworks, no pyro, no entrances, no nothing. Show comes on the air, wrestlers in the ring, bam, here we go. I wouldn't mind seeing more of that, only because we never do see much of it. And sometimes you like the big opening and you like the big pyro and all the pageantry and all of that, great, but you don't need to do it all the time. So every now and then, doing something like that is really good. Plus, they were probably trying to get a step up and, a leg up on NXT by just having their match kick off right away, where Rhea Ripley and Bianca was going to go through the whole entrances and all that. So I really like that. And Bianca and Ripley was good, but it was a pretty predictable match as well, because I know that when Rhea Ripley came out and challenged Shayna Baszler, and then you had Bianca Belair and Io Shirai both saying, oh, you're going to have to go through me first. To me, that just looked like that's exactly what she's going to do. She's going to have a match with Bianca first, beat her, then a match with Io Shirai, beat her, then earn that shot against Shayna, which I'm hoping comes at War Games, and she wins the title. So Her defeating Bianca Belair, not surprising, but a good little match. And like I said, Rhea's just a boss. We had Matt Riddle defeating Cameron Grimes. Interesting spot after the match as well, where Matt tries to fist bump Cameron Grimes like he tries to do to every opponent. Cameron denies him, so Matt goes outside the ring, fist bumps Tyler Bate, who's at ringside for some reason. This upsets Cameron Grimes. He goes and shoves Tyler Bate, and Tyler knocks him out with a punch. We had Breezango over Forgotten Sons in a 6-man match. Angel Garza over Jack Gallagher. We had Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai. We need to come up with a team name for them. Double knee injury, double knee rehab. I don't know what you call them. But the two knee injury girls teaming up and defeated Jessamine Duke and Marina Shafir to earn a number 1 contenders match for the WWE tag team titles. I had almost forgotten that these titles were defended across all the brands. I'd forgot. I thought it was just Raw and SmackDown. So when I'm hearing this, I'm like, really? For real? And then after they won, Kyrie and Asuka appeared on the screen in a pre-tape, obviously, and said that they have no chance of beating them next week, and they're right. So Asuka is going to return to NXT next week. How cool is that? And so will Kyrie Sane, but seeing Asuka back in NXT is wonderful. So Asuka will be destroying Tegan and Dakota, I would assume, with Kyrie Sane next week. I fully expect them to retain. I think that would be a major upset if they took the titles off the Kabuki Warriors in NXT. So I think Asuka's and Kyrie are coming down there for a little appearance. That's going to be fun and very cool. I had kind of forgotten that was the deal with the NXT titles. We'll move on to the main event spot here because this was just great shit. I did not see this coming. I was legitimately shocked. I was so happy because I can't remember when a heel turn shocked me this much. It's been a while, because I just didn't see it coming. So you had the big triple threat match for the North American titles, Keith Lee, Dominick Dijakovic, and Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong retains in a really good triple threat match. Thought the match was solid. Thought the match held up with Moxley and Pac in terms of, just a good wrestling match. Maybe the matches were equal in the ring, but I think I'm going to give the nod to the triple threat. I really enjoyed the match. So I think AEW had the better opener, and I think NXT had the better main event. And then it only got better after Roderick Strong retains the North American title, which I predicted he would. I thought that Keith Lee and Dominic, those two guys in there would cancel each other out. Roderick would be able to steal a victory somehow. That's pretty much exactly what happened. And as soon as he retained, the Undisputed Era came out to join him in the ring. And that's when Tommaso Ciampa comes out. He comes out by himself. He's got the crutch, gets in the ring, face to face with all 4 members of the Undisputed Era. And then Johnny Gargano comes out to join Ciampa. And I'm like, holy shit, look at this. There's 4 guys on one side. So far, there's 2 on the other. Probably with 2 more to go. This is going to be our War Games match. This was just brilliant because that's what WWE made you think they were doing. Setting up War Games. So Balor came out next, which was not a huge surprise. Balor comes out and then you're like, oh shit, who's the 4th guy going to be? Is it going to be Matt Riddle? Is it going to be somebody from the main roster like Cesaro, who I'm just dying for them to send back to NXT? I'm thinking it's going to be some big name, and before the 4th name can come out, Pele kick out of nowhere from Finn Balor right to the melon of Johnny Gargano. He goes down. Ciampa looks stunned. Undisputed Era swarms and attacks, and Balor takes Gargano out of the ring, continues the attack on the outside of the ring. Gargano has to be stretchered out of there. Great heel turn, great swerve, great moment. I didn't know what it meant at first. I was like, I don't think Balor is joining the Undisputed Era. But what he said earlier too, he was talking in those vignettes and those promos, and Mauro Ranallo alluded to it. He did say that his future is in his past. So I was thinking, is he going to start a faction? Because don't forget the Bullet Club, he was the founding member of that. Could they maybe, hell, what if they brought in AJ and Gallows and Anderson and they formed the Bullet Club to go up against Undisputed Era? Think of that War Games match, but that doesn't look like what they're doing. Balor turned, he beat the shit out of Gargano. That's probably going to be our first, singles match there or something like that. And great moment, great way to end the show. I loved it, and I'm interested to see where heel Finn Balor goes. I think this is a great rebirth for him. He was also on WWE's Backstage show last night. Now, I haven't really taken a look at this aside from a few clips. They have the official premiere comes up on November 5th. But he was on there last night talking to Renee and Booker T, and I loved the end. He goes, basically, well, first he brought up his career prior to WWE. He told Booker T, he goes, you familiar with my career before WWE, right? You know what I'm capable of, right? And then he says, like, why don't we just say the Prince is back? Holy shit, did I mark out. Now, I don't think he's going to be being referred to as Prince Devitt again, but the fact that they're acknowledging that, saying where he came from, I think offers a lot of opportunity for the future, and I think this new attitude Finn Balor is going to be fun. I hope he goes on a tear, and at this point, if he does become NXT champion again, I think he's got a ways to go, because now it looks like he'll be with Gargano. Maybe Ciampa will be having a match with Adam Cole, or we're going to do something. We still don't know what's going to happen at War Games. I don't know if Undisputed Era is going to be involved in this match for what, like the third year in a row or not, but whatever they do, I'm looking forward to the next pay-per-view. So maybe Balor will eventually get the title, I don't know, maybe at the WrestleMania takeover. Maybe Ciampa wins it first, and he runs with it maybe as a babyface for a while. I don't know. And then Balor takes it off of him. Who knows? Not sure where they're going with that yet, but the fact that Balor turned heel was a great swerve, and I really marked out for it. I think that's great. I wish him all the luck in the world. And speaking of that season premiere of WWE Backstage on November 5th, John Cena and Rob Gronkowski are booked for that show. It's a really nicely produced show. It's very foxy. You know, it's very much like a sports show is on ESPN, and I like their interview style. I think their production is better and different and something that wrestling fans aren't used to really seeing, and I liked just the interview process better. I think this is a great fit for Renee Young. I mean, we remember hearing stories about ESPN showing interest in her and maybe trying to lure her away from WWE because she'd be a great on-air personality or sportscaster or analyst, and she does great here. She fits in this role like a glove, like an absolute glove. Let me move over here, get a little bit more centered in the screen here for you guys. So that was kind of interesting. And there's also been talk of, I was reading this too, a talk of an NXT Japan branch. I love NXT and everything, but I really don't like what WWE is doing here, cornering these markets. I mean, apparently they've done a lot of damage to the UK indie scene with NXT UK. I do not want to see the same thing happen to Japan, but WWE is a business and they have arms and branches everywhere, and I would not be surprised if that becomes an actual reality, which kind of sucks. We'll move on to Monday Night Raw next. Not a good show, guys. I was up here live reacting to the show on Monday, and we sat through 3 hours of shit together, didn't we? Now, the ratings are in for Raw. They're up from last week. 2.34 million, up from 2.27 the week before, so that's good. But still, the show just was not good. The only good thing on the show was the opening match. Drew McIntyre, of course, was named the final member of Team Flair, so he made his return and took on Ricochet in a great opening match. This was fun. And their King of the Ring match was spectacular as well. And I was on the stream on Monday saying, oh, McIntyre's going to win this. You know, Ricochet already beat him in a pretty big upset in that great King of the Ring match. McIntyre's just returning, being introduced by Flair. He's going to have to win this match. He did. Great opening match. Excellent way to start Monday Night Raw. We thought we might be okay. We thought there was a chance to get a decent Monday Night Raw. Boy, were we wrong. I don't have the results of Raw written down in order, so I'm just going to talk about parts of the show. I'm going to talk about Rey Mysterio and Cain Velasquez in a minute when we discuss SmackDown, but they were on Raw first. Rey came out there to cut a promo, and out comes Shelton Benjamin. I liked this because Shelton Benjamin has a lot of history with Brock Lesnar. He gets in the ring, starts talking up his friendship and his history with Brock, kind of gets in Rey's face a little bit, threatens Rey Mysterio, and that's when Cain Velasquez comes out and jumps Shelton. Yeah, does not look good. These were some of the worst looking punches I've ever seen. I'm nervous for what Cain Velasquez is going to look like at Crown Jewel, because if this was any indication, I don't know. And Cain can do some things. You know, I watched his, debut, and I think in AAA when he was under a mask and he was doing some athletic things, but I don't think WWE wants him to do that. I do not think WWE wants Cain to perform a flying head scissors on Brock Lesnar. This has to be a fight. So it's going to be a lot of grappling, a lot of wrestling, a lot of punches, a lot of cover-ups, things like that. And if this was supposed to be a little bit of practice for Velasquez, he did not look good at all. And eventually ran off Shelton Benjamin, of course, but didn't really like the way he looked in the ring. I think he's got some improvements to make. And the title's on the line, no less, on Thursday. I'm a little nervous. We had a nice match between Humberto Carrillo and Seth Rollins. Now, this was set up backstage. Humberto's doing this interview, and I guess I never realized that he dresses like a Power Ranger. I don't know if I really like his ring gear. A little over the top, but whatever. He's doing an interview, and for some reason, he decides to call out Seth Rollins. He says, I think he's being interviewed by Kayla or Chuck, and he goes, one day I want to be champion, and if I am champion, I'm not going to be the type of champion that burns things down like Seth Rollins, or whatever he says. Basically just threw some shade at Seth. Seth hears this, winds up confronting him, and says, why don't we go have a match right now? Why don't you give yourself a chance to beat me in the ring? So they go in the ring and they have the exact type of match you would expect them to have. Seth gives this kid a great match. Great showing by Humberto Carrillo. And in the end, Seth Rollins beats him. They have the handshake, the show of respect at the end. And I love to see that. Now, the only thing that worries me is that we see this a lot. We've seen this a lot recently with Ali, with Buddy Murphy, are great examples of that. When they take a young talent who's got all the tools and everything is there, they try to give him a little bit of a rub, put him in a match with a main event player like Buddy Murphy did with Roman Reigns. Think of how great that match was. And everybody was like, oh my God, he's a star in the making. But WWE does that. They give them these great moments. They give them an opportunity to show what they can do. They impress all of the audience, and then WWE does nothing. So they already gave Ali big match moments and victories. He beat Daniel Bryan, remember? Then Buddy Murphy had a good match with Roman Reigns, even though he didn't win. And now Seth Rollins gives this kid an excellent contest on Monday Night Raw that gets the fans excited, saying, okay, great, we like to see that. Start pushing some of this great young in-ring talent that you have, but then they do it for 1 week and then just stop doing it. So even though Humberto Carrillo had this great match against Seth Rollins on Monday, I don't think it's going to lead to anything. I think it might lead to a second match. They might follow through with it for a couple of weeks, but they're not going to follow through with it for very long. They're going to ruin it, like they ruin everything. So even though I liked what I saw, thought this match was good, I'm not optimistic that WWE will continue to push this kid, because if they didn't continue the push of Ali or Buddy Murphy, why are they going to do it with him? You know what I mean? I definitely need a sip of water before I talk about this next thing. Oh my God. Y'all ready to talk about Rusev and Lana? I'm not. Oh my God. Okay. So Rusev is on the King's Court. By the way, next week, or this week on Raw in 2 days, it's going to be the King's Divorce Court. I'm not kidding. That's actually what's advertised. So Rusev is a guest on the King's Court. King's got him in the ring. He's asking about the Lana and Lashley situation. And I don't know if it's just me or if you guys are picking up on this too, but do you think that Rusev is purposely kind of throwing this? He does not seem like he really gives a shit at all. I think he realizes that this angle is so fantastically and ridiculously balls out fucking stupid that he can't even hide his nonchalantness. He seems upset in the ring a little bit that Lana has left him for Lashley, says he's still wearing his wedding ring, he still wants her back. And that's when Lana and Lashley appear on the screen. They're at a restaurant, a really fancy, schmancy restaurant. Lashley's sitting there with his white-ass teeth and his painted-on eyebrows, and Lana's got her snavitzes hanging out, and Lana's like, Lashley wines and dines me. I've been begging Rusev. This is the funniest part. I've been begging Rusev to take me to this restaurant, and he never did, but Lashley did. Wait a minute. You travel the world. Of all of the cities and all of the places that you have been, a restaurant in Cleveland is where you've been begging Rusev to take you? I don't think so. So that was stupid. And they're sitting there while they're eating dessert. I think Lashley's like feeding Lana whipped cream or something. So they're done with dinner, right? Because unless you're having dessert as an appetizer, you're fucking done. They're eating their dessert. They're taunting Rusev. And Rusev says, you know what? I know exactly where they are. Lana asks me to take her there all the time. I'm going to go there right now. So he jumps out of the ring and starts walking to the back so he can go to this restaurant. And like an hour goes by. So like, what the hell are Lana and Lashley doing there? The check should be on the table. I'm in the restaurant business. I've been in the restaurant business 27 years. I do not want somebody eating dessert sitting at a table for an hour and a half because I need to put somebody else there. So they need to be kicked out. So here's your bill, pay, go home, and get naked and do whatever you got to do is what they should have been doing. So like an hour goes by and they cut back to the restaurant. They show the manager approaching Lashley and Lana and saying, look, I think that Rusev is coming here. I don't want any trouble. I have to ask you guys to leave, which they should have already been gone before Rusev even got out of the arena in Cleveland. Lashley and Lana should have already been in their Uber back to their hotel so they can get their fuck on. You know what I mean? So all this time goes by. For some reason, they're still in the restaurant. As soon as the manager asks them to leave, Rusev storms in. He attacks him. And again, as somebody that's been working in restaurants my whole life, we don't have 15 security guards hanging around the restaurant. We don't have any security guards. You know who the security is? Me. My chefs. We're the security guards. So they start brawling. Rusev and Lashley are brawling with each other. Somehow security shows up and starts pulling these guys apart. It was the dumbest. I mean, what is WWE doing? I hate this segment so bad, or this angle. This is just the worst thing. And they've already tried this, sort of. When Lana left Rusev for Ziggler. Like, why do they insist on putting these two through hell? What do they have against Rusev and Lana that they're putting them in these situations? I wish Rusev would leave. I wish he could get out of there and go to All Elite Wrestling. Because this is so ridiculous. I don't know. I don't know what the internal reports or, stories are behind the scenes as to why WWE is doing this. I have no idea. If they think this is entertaining, if this is a Vince idea, don't forget Paul Heyman is in charge here. I would think that Paul Heyman would be man enough to speak up and say, this is stupid. I mean, unless Paul Heyman is the one writing this, but I'd like to think he's not. But I can see why Vince thinks this is great. This is typical Vince shit. He loves this stuff. He stuck his tongue all the way down the throat of Trish Stratus right in front of his wife. He loves this stuff. So he probably thinks it's great. But everybody else thinks it's a pile of shit, and this is a dumb angle that the fans are booing. Did you notice that? They're not booing Rusev they're not booing Lashley and Lana for kissing and betraying Rusev. They're booing because it sucks. And so now they're doubling down on this shit. And this week on Raw, we have Divorce King's Court. So I guess they're all going to be out there in the ring this time. Probably going to be another brawl. And I don't know if Lana and Rusev are going to officially get divorced in this. I don't know. It's horrible. And it looks like it's going to continue to be horrible for weeks to come. So I don't know what to make of that either. It just sucks. I'm trying to read the chat to see if you guys are shitting on it as hard as I do. And yeah, Rusev reminds you of Nintendo's Mario. Yeah, kind of. Rusev's been rocking that porn stash, which I love, by the way. I love Rusev. And we're going to talk about him too. We're going to talk about more. I'm going to bring him up as an example here in a minute when I talk about Shorty G. It's just like that Rusev Day shit. They have constantly fucked with this guy, and then they did the Rusev Day thing and he got it over. Turned out to be one of their better selling t-shirts and they just killed that. As soon as a talent starts getting over on their own, that's when WWE takes the rug out from under them. How many times have we seen this happen? With the B team, with Zack Ryder, all these examples of guys getting stupid gimmicks over, and then as soon as they do, WWE takes it away. I firmly believe that they just don't. Talent is not allowed to get over unless management wants you to get over. And that's sad. WWE is broken. The system is broken. It's so wasteful of so much good talent. And these are human beings, They're not trash. They're not used grocery bags that you just throw away. They're human fucking beings. Use them. They're talented. Instead, they seem like they're specifically booking people in angles just to mess with them. It feels like they resent their own talent. They resent their audience. WWE proves it with angles like this. It's horrible. If I wasn't doing these Raw streams every night or every Monday with you guys, I would not watch this. I wouldn't. I would probably take 2 or 3 weeks off from Raw at a time. I'd probably watch the go-home shows to pay-per-views, and that's it. Because it's not worth watching. There's nothing worthwhile on these shows. It's been a while now since we've seen, wow, that was a great Raw. That was a fun night of wrestling. We've only had a couple of those occurrences in the entire year of 2019. But for the most part, these Raws are silly angles, meaningless matches, repeat matches, and flat main events. And bad scripted promos. That's all it is. Didn't get any better. One of the Bollywood girls beat R-Truth for the 24/7 title. I don't know if she's still the champion or not. But he lost the belt, so that was sad. The main event was also fucked up. So they announced the 6-man main event for Raw. It's going to be the OC, Gallows, Anderson, AJ versus the Street Profits and a mystery partner. And the mystery partner was intriguing because they announced it days ahead of time. So you had all this time to think about who the mystery partner was going to be. On the Raw graphic, the silhouette was a perfectly shaped bald person. So I put myself in there and used that as my thumbnail. Told all you guys that I'm going to be the partner. And hell, you guys almost believed me because the match started without the partner coming out. So I thought for sure, because we see this all the time, I think Street Profits came out first. I forgot who came out first. I think the club was in the ring. Then out came the Street Profits, and then AJ gets on the mic saying, oh no, I'm sorry, Street Profits came out first. Then the club did, and then AJ's on the mic saying, hey, where's your partner? And I was on the stream on Monday saying they always do this. It's so unoriginal. Every time there's a mystery partner and that mystery partner doesn't come out right away, the opponent gets all excited that the mystery opponent's not going to be there. And they're like, sweet, we only have to face 2 guys. And I'm like, AJ, you're a fucking idiot. You know you're going to sit there bragging, think that these guys don't have a partner, and then that partner's going to show up. But he didn't. It turns out to be a regular tag match. After advertising a 6-man all week, AJ is now out of the match. It's Street Profits versus Gallows and Anderson, and AJ's trying to interfere. The referee tosses him out from ringside. He gets all mad, and that's when Kevin Owens, who was drafted to Raw, shows up, attacks AJ, hits him with a stunner, just enough distraction to allow Street Profits to get the win over Gallows and Anderson, and they win. Great. Welcome back, Kevin Owens. Looks like he's going to be starting something with AJ Styles now. But why wasn't he in the match? Was somebody not cleared that I don't know about? Why would they do it this way instead of having Owens just be in the match with them? I think Owens would team up great with the Street Profits. Remember how fun Owens was with the New Day? That was great shit. Fun shit. I would love to see Owens hanging out with the Street Profits. So I didn't really like the way that whole main event went down. In the end of the day, it doesn't matter. So what? We got cheated out of a 6-man that wouldn't have been that great anyway. But if you're saying there's going to be a mystery partner and a mystery opponent for the OC, and then you don't even do it, and then you just bring him out at the end, who's to say he was even the opponent? Who's to say he was the Street Profits partner? He might have just been coming out there randomly. Maybe their partner did abandon them. I think the announcers put it over that he was the partner, but why wasn't he in the match? What was he doing? Taking a shit? Playing checkers? Where were you, Kevin Owens? So anyway, stupid main event, stupid ending to Raw, and aside from the phenomenal Ricochet and Drew McIntyre match that opened the show, Raw was a big, steaming pile of shit. And if you noticed, no women's matches on the entire show. The women were off on the Australian tour, so WWE's roster was very thin for Monday Night Raw anyway, which is why I think that main event was even weirder than it should have been. But that's the first time in I don't know how long that we have seen 0 women's matches on Monday Night Raw. And they weren't even in Saudi Arabia, but at least they had a reason because everybody was over on the Australian tour. Let's move on to Smackdown Live and talk about that now. Rusev is overrated? No way. Rusev's underrated. Rusev's the man. He's had some good times, man. You know, think about it. When he came in, was feud with Cena and everything. I know he had to wrestle with Cena, which inevitably meant he was going to lose, but he was good, man. I always liked Rusev. There's no reason why that guy couldn't have been world champion. None at all. Good look. He's got the size. He's good in the ring, and he's entertaining. He's got charisma, you know, and we didn't see that from him. You know, he was all that Bulgarian gimmick at first, coming out on the tank at WrestleMania and all of that. And then when he transformed in that goofy-ass babyface and showed everybody that he's fucking hysterical, I don't know why WWE, they got a gold mine sitting there. This guy should have his talk show. I know we've already got Miz TV and 1,000 other talk shows, but we should have Rusev Day TV, where he interviews people because that would be an entertaining thing for him to do because he's an entertaining guy. And WWE just flat out refuses to use him in any way, which is why it goes to show you that there's so much more going on behind the scenes than we as fans will ever realize. Because even though it seems like on paper, why would you not push Rusev? He's great. He's got all these tools. Well, WWE's spiteful. So it might be backstage stuff. It might be shit that we don't even know about. Management gets sour on some guy because of whatever stupid reason it might be. And his push is affected. And his spot on the card is affected. We see that all the time. So even though it's really easy to say that Rusev has got all the talent, but they don't use him, there's probably reasons for that. And those reasons are probably stupid, petty ones, as they tend to be in WWE. But let's move into SmackDown Live now. Again, SmackDown last night was not a great show either. I came home from work. I was watching, reading Twitter during work, not liking the feedback I was seeing from you guys. And I was kind of bummed out because I'm like, shit, I got the podcast tomorrow. I have no choice but to go home and spend my Friday night watching SmackDown. So I kind of skimmed through it. I think it was a better show than Raw, but still not very good. Show opened up with Miz TV, Ric Flair and Hulk Hogan with a few team members on each side. So I think Hogan had Roman, Ali, and Shorty G in the ring on his side, and Flair had Baron Corbin, Nakamura, and Sami Zayn. Now, Sami Zayn is not in the match. Sami Zayn is playing the role of a manager right now. He's completely staying out of the ring. This entire promo actually sets up a six-man main event. It's going to be Roman, Ali, and Shorty G taking on Baron Corbin, Nakamura, and Cesaro, who Sami Zayn introduced as his replacement in the six-man match. So Sami is just doing no wrestling at all right now. But Sami's great in this role. I like the stories that we're hearing about Sami and Nakamura potentially taking this into WrestleMania. That might be fun if they can actually book this in a meaningful way and it makes it that long and it's not ruined before then. That can be fun. So Sami in this role, I think, is at least better than him wrestling every week on TV and losing, right? So whatever. I can handle that. He's entertaining. What I cannot handle is fucking Shorty G. Now let's talk about him before we talk about this main event, okay? Shorty G, if you noticed, on Miz TV has now not only changed his name, but he's got this whole new outfit. He's basically wearing this like gym outfit, gym shorts with a tank top with a big G that's has a ruler on the side of it. So Chad Gable's gimmick is a ruler. He's Shorty G. I think he's 5'8", whatever he is. And he keeps pushing this idea of accepting who you are and all of this. And it reminds me of one of these gimmicks, and I put this on Twitter too, that I have a feeling that is unbelievably stupid as this is, it's going to find a way to get over. Dumber things than this have gotten over in the past. And if you have a piece of talent that works hard and busts his ass to get something over, it generally can. And I think Chad Gable is good enough to do that. I think the guy's got charisma. I think he's great in the ring. So far, he seems to be embracing this wholeheartedly. And even though I'm disgusted with the gimmick, them slapping a gimmick like this on a fucking Olympian turns my stomach. It just makes me so ridiculously sick that WWE feels that they have to do something this drastic to get someone over when it really doesn't take that much. You know, he could have gotten over without this crap, but whatever. It's professional wrestling. Wrestling's fun and wacky and crazy, right? So this is going to be his new gimmick, whatever. It's dumb, but watch it get over. Watch it get over like Rusev Day. Watch it get over like the B team. The fans will start warming up to it. The fans will start embracing it. The fans will start really cheering hard for Shorty G. He's going to get great ovations. He's going to get Shorty G chants when he's not even out in the ring. And then what's WWE going to do? They have once again fallen ass backward into a gold mine, and they are going to piss it away because it wasn't designed to get over. And when it did get over, they're like, well, what do we do now? We didn't want it to get over in the first place, so let's just put the kibosh on it. That's literally what they do in every situation. Chad Gable is fucked. 6 ways to Sunday here. Because no matter what he does, he's fucked in this gimmick because it's stupid. And it's just ridiculous that they even did that. So he's fucked in that respect. But if he somehow is able to turn the tables here and get this gimmick over, he's also fucked because WWE's going to take it away from him. They're going to take it right away from him. He's going to work so hard and kill himself out there to make this ridiculous costume that he's in work and get over, and then WWE's just going to take a shit on his face. Ugh, this fucking company. So I feel bad for Shorty G that he's just in a lose-lose situation here. No matter what he does, whether this gimmick just stays crap and doesn't get over, or whether it gets over and WWE takes it away from him, either way, it ain't going to end well for Chad Gable, and I have no idea what his contract status is or when his will be up. But if they don't start treating him right, what's his motivation to re-sign? Yeah, I want 5 more years of Shorty G. That'll put me in the Hall of Fame. Get the fuck out of here. WWE's broken. Like I said, they are more broken than Matt Hardy. We also had a Firefly Funhouse on SmackDown as well. This was kind of funny because, I'm sorry, backtrack. Forget what I just said. Let's not talk about the Funhouse yet. I got to talk about that main event. We did have the 6-man main event there. Not much to say about it other than the babyfaces won. So Team Hogan got the victory there. Ali pinned Cesaro. So Cesaro came out to be the replacement for Sami Zayn. So, of course, he's going to eat the pin. I really want them to send Cesaro to NXT. That's just, to me, where he needs to be. He's doing nothing on the main roster. He hasn't done anything since he body slammed the Big Show over the top rope at WrestleMania 30. He's done dick since then, and that was 5.5 years ago. So it's time to put him back in NXT where he can do something meaningful. But I thought that maybe Team Flair would get the victory in that because I'm kind of pegging Team Hogan to win at Crown Jewel. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think Hogan, the babyface team, the Hogan character, the whole deal, the real American music, I just kind of think that the babyfaces are going to win in front of that Saudi Arabian audience. Just feels like what they're going to do. But maybe not. It might be Flair, considering that Team Hogan got the victory on SmackDown. Now we can backtrack and talk about the Firefly Funhouse. So they did a Firefly Funhouse segment on SmackDown. We had a funeral for Ramblin' Rabbit. So sad. Little coffin. Very sad. Bray Wyatt's very sad. He said it was an open casket. He decides to open the casket to pull out this like bloody corpse of Ramblin' Rabbit. And he puts it down and like it comes back to life. He kisses it, I think, right? He kisses it and Ramblin' Rabbit reemerges, which is great because Ramblin' Rabbit dies in every episode. So I was surprised that this death was going to be so final for him. And as soon as he comes back to life, Mercy the Buzzard eats him. So Ramblin' Rabbit is Kenny from South Park, but I'm glad that he didn't die in Seth Rollins' heinous attack on the Funhouse last week. And another thing that I'm thinking about Bray Wyatt that makes me so mad about this WWE draft and all this shit is that you have this inter-promotional match at Crown Jewel. It's Bray Wyatt versus Seth Rollins for the Universal title, but Bray Wyatt is a fucking SmackDown guy. So what happens if he wins the title? Do you do some sort of a flop, a swap here? Now, I said last week that I'm personally not expecting any titles to change hands at Crown Jewel. I could be wrong. I just feel like they won't. But if they did, it feels like they might both have to change hands. Like I would think that Cain Velasquez might have to win the world title and jump to Raw to be with Rey Mysterio. And then Bray Wyatt will keep the Universal title on SmackDown. Or you do that trade. There's still that trade that's been floating around out there. Alexa and Nikki were sent to SmackDown. Raw apparently is getting something in the future. So if Bray Wyatt were to win the title at Crown Jewel, Raw might insist in saying, hey, you can't have our title. We need to work out a trade. You need to give us our champion. And maybe they do it that way. Or Seth Rollins finds a way to retain and they bring Bray Wyatt over to Raw after the fact. Maybe they just wanted to give Fox a taste of the Funhouse. They just wanted to show the Fox audience this character because it's so fucking crazy. And I said right from the start that prior to the draft, that the Fiend character seemed more like a Raw character to me. It seemed more like a USA Network character. I wasn't sure if Fox was going to be into Bray Wyatt carrying out a severed head to the ring. I wasn't sure. I felt like he was more of a USA Network character. But then he got drafted to SmackDown. So I'm kind of thinking in the back of my mind that there's more than this than meets the eye. That maybe he is eventually going to go over to the Raw brand at some point, and maybe they just wanted to showcase him a little bit on Fox first. So I don't know how that's going to go. I don't know if he wins the title and then moves to Raw, or if he doesn't win the title and still moves to Raw. But if he stays on SmackDown, I don't know what he's going to do there. He's probably going to be involved in a mid-card feud on SmackDown if Brock Lesnar is your champion over there. Unless you book Brock and The Fiend at the next show. And this is all assuming, of course, Brock retains against Velasquez, which I think he will. So, or maybe he won't, based on what we did see him do to Ray and Dominick here shortly. So I'm still not sold on the fact that Bray Wyatt, The Fiend, is going to be a SmackDown character for life. I feel like he's going to make his way to Raw at some point, and with him having this match with Seth, it's so frustrating that you do this draft, this exclusive brands, we're going to do it right this time, and right off the fucking bat, you've got this interpromotional match. So I think they might have put him on SmackDown just for a little while, just to show Fox that character, just to show Fox what they can do. They're very into being on that network. They're so excited. I see super chats flying in. I'm going to answer those, Zane, in a minute from you as soon as I'm done talking about SmackDown here. We also had a Daniel Bryan interview on SmackDown where he's being interviewed by Michael Cole. And basically, it looks like they're trying to slowly turn Daniel Bryan heel here. I am so surprised that this never turned out to be something more with Roman Reigns. I thought for sure that the whole hit and run angle was going to turn out to be Daniel Bryan being the mastermind, teasing a heel turn, or teasing a face turn by aligning with Roman, saying that he would never do something that dastardly by running him over with a car. Samoa Joe did the same thing, if you remember. And then I thought for sure it was going to turn out to be Daniel Bryan in the end, but that angle seems to be already done. They've moved Eric Rowan over to Raw. The whole thing seems to be over and done with. The hit and run angle, the whodunit angle, which was dumb to begin with, but could have been good had it had a decent payoff, but it didn't have any payoff. We just never got anything really. So, I mean, aside from Eric Rowan getting beat by Roman, but I wish they would have done more than that. So now Daniel Bryan is kind of left here with nothing to do, and he was kind of already turning into that babyface, teaming up with Roman Reigns before this. So now he's out in the ring with Michael Cole. Nakamura and Sami Zayn come out. Sami Zayn touts his history with Daniel Bryan, trying to entice Daniel Bryan to join up with Sami and Nakamura, talking about their history, even says that I'm also a vegan just like you. And he says, you know, you can either move backwards with the fans or you can move forward with us, and offers Daniel Bryan, I guess, a spot in the little faction. And Daniel Bryan almost shakes his hand and then just decides to walk away. So looks like this is going to be a real kind of slow face turn here for Daniel Bryan. The good news is, looks like they're setting up Nakamura and Daniel Bryan for the Intercontinental title. That's a match we've been waiting to see for quite some time, at least one-on-one, and there's going to be a title on the line, most likely. Hopefully that will happen either at Survivor Series or on TV. I don't know if they're going to be involved in a Survivor Series match or what. Still don't know what's going on in Survivor Series. It looks like the champion versus champion, brand versus brand thing is not going to happen. I think we might get a 5-on-5. They should probably do that. Just one big match, and then everything else is, you know, just brand matches, nothing else interpromotional. And if that happens, I would love to see Bryan take on Nakamura at Survivor Series. But if not, I don't know what they're going to do. So Daniel Bryan seems like he's still not quite sure what the future holds for him and if he's going to be full-on heel or full-on babyface. Time will tell, right? We had Braun Strowman coming out to destroy Drew Gulak. Gulak was doing a slideshow presentation. He was having a match with Kalisto. He lost, and that's when Braun Strowman came out to destroy him. They also filmed something at the Performance Center. I only caught a glimpse of that, where Tyson Fury was in the ring throwing shoulder tackles and Braun knocked him down or something. So continuing to play that up, I really, at least Brock and Kane, I'm somewhat interested in, but I really just have no interest at all in Strowman and Tyson Fury. Don't care what happens. I think I know what's going to happen. And I don't really care about the match at all in any way, shape, or form. We had Nikki Cross defeating Mandy Rose one-on-one. Sasha and Bayley were on commentary for this. Bayley acting like a complete asshole. I like her. I like her in this heel role. I don't think that she is as good at it as Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn was a guy that before he turned heel, I wasn't sure how he could be a heel. But then once he did, I'm like, oh, he is a phenomenal heel. Bayley is doing good. I like her look. I like her attitude. I like the sourpuss look she has on her face now instead of being all smiles. I like the darker clothes. I like the haircut, like the dark eye makeup. But I still don't think she's quite as good as someone like a Sami Zayn was. But she's getting there. She'll be better. Nikki is getting the title shot against Bayley as well, right? So she'll be facing her for the title pretty soon. And they all just pretty much set that up in the whole segment. Nothing much to report there. Speaking of heels and promos and all that kind of stuff, did you guys catch the Sonya Deville promo that she cut, basically making fun of all the women on the roster? Very good stuff. I wouldn't consider it necessarily a pipe bomb, but something that I'd loved to see from Sonya, because I like Sonya a lot. And she even called out Becky Lynch, saying that she's going to make Becky call her daddy, which was pretty funny. So really good Sonya promo. If you haven't caught that, just go on Twitter or Google and search Sonya promo. It'll come up. Good stuff from her. Hopefully that will turn into something. I would like to see her go singles, maybe break away from Mandy, kick her ass and go out on her own. We did have some women traded to SmackDown recently with Alexa and Nikki Cross. Maybe you can send Sonya over to Raw. Maybe that's what they were setting up for, is trading her. That would be a good way to get her away from Mandy Rose too. You put Sonya Deville on Raw, gives you a challenger for Becky, might be pretty good. So I liked what I saw from Sonya, and I hope she makes the jump over to Raw so she can eventually have that match with Becky Lynch. It might be pretty fun. We were also supposed to have, this was great, supposed to see Brock Lesnar and Cain Velasquez face-to-face confrontation in the ring. Big segment on SmackDown planned. Rey and Velasquez come out. They get in the ring. They're calling out Brock Lesnar. Heyman and Brock appear on the Tron instead. Heyman is like, are you crazy? Brock's not going to get in the ring just a few days after he's going to fight you and put him in any sort of position to get jumped or taken advantage of or whatever. Basically says that they're not coming out. And Rey is like, come on, Brock, be a man, be a man. And Heyman's like, he's busy. You want to see what we've been doing back here? Do you want Brock Lesnar to show you what we've been doing? And the camera pans down, and Brock Lesnar has got Dominick's head in his hand. And he is beating the piss out of this poor kid again. He's holding him by his neck. Dominick's just destroyed. Velasquez and Rey jump out of the ring. They run to the back. They cut to commercial. They come back. They're in the doctor's area, or the training room. They've got Dominick laid out on the table, and Cain and Rey are over him, checking on him, and Rey is doing some of the worst acting I've ever seen. You know, they're in the training room, but I think there was better acting in the movie The Room than there was in this. You know, with Velasquez saying, it's going to be okay, buddy, and Rey keeps going like this with his head, and he's just, this phony-ass emotion is just so bad. You know, if you're spending so much money on pyro and production values and all this shit and promo classes and all this crap, can you teach these fuckers how to act, please? Horrible acting. But the segment was saved by Brock Lesnar jumping all three of them. He picks up Velasquez in the training room in an F5 position and F5s him on top of poor Dominick. And then he picks up Rey Mysterio and F5s him into the wall. What is it with Mysterio being thrown into shit? He loves it. Remember, Kevin Nash started this whole thing back in 1996 by lawn darting Rey Mysterio's face into the side of a trailer. Big Show played baseball with Mysterio tied to a gurney on SmackDown and slammed him into the ring post. Brock throws Mysterio right into the brick wall. And I'm sure a few other things like that have happened to Rey over the years. It's his favorite thing to do. So that was great. Brock annihilating all three of those guys was a great segment. I loved that. And that adds a lot of heat to this feud. And now, considering that that's the go-home show to Crown Jewel, and with Brock inflicting that much damage on these guys ahead of that match with Velasquez, I know I predicted Brock to retain the title, but are we sure about that? Hell, maybe Velasquez could win the belt. You know, would they do a quick title change there and then maybe give it back to Brock at Survivor Series? Or how are they going to do this? You know, like I said, if I had to guess, I would think that Brock Lesnar is going to find a way to retain a crown jewel. It could be some interference. It could be a schmoz. It could be a no contest. He might hit Velasquez with a knee to the groin, just like Jake Hager did to his opponent at Bellator. And maybe the ref calls for the bell. I certainly don't care if they do a non-finish in Saudi Arabia. I don't give a shit. Fine with me. And if it was also up to me, I would like to see Brock keep the title. Brock is a much better professional wrestler than Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez really is in Brock Lesnar's world. Brock knows what he's doing. Kane kind of didn't look very good in that brawl with Shelton on Monday Night Raw. He took some good punishment in the beatdown from Brock here. So, I don't know. I think Brock just escapes. I think Brock just pull some shady shit, gets himself disqualified, or wins by cheating. Maybe hits Kane with a low blow and gets the victory, setting up a rematch or at least keeping Kane strong. Maybe he hits him with a chair. Maybe we get a surprise return, or maybe we get a surprise appearance, some interference by somebody, maybe another UFC star showing up to help Brock out. I don't know. I think there's a lot of things they could do in the match that allows Brock to escape with the belt, but doesn't have him beat Kane straight up either. It's probably going to be something like that if I had to guess. And then after that, your guess is as good as mine, because Velasquez, I don't think, was drafted. So we don't even know where he is yet. And he does have a contract. So after this match, there has been talk of him moving over to Raw with Mysterio, but I don't know if that means the issue, at least for the time being, with Brock will be settled, or if it'll carry on a few more weeks and maybe even in to Survivor Series. Would love to hear you guys' opinions on that. What do you guys think they're going to do with Velasquez and Brock? And I'm going to run down that Crown Jewel card in a moment. We also have a lot advertised for next week. We've got Roman Reigns versus Baron Corbin. Yay. That's going to be our next feud. Seriously? Haven't we already seen that 4 times? So we got Corbin and Roman again. Miz is going to have The Fiend or Bray Wyatt on Miz TV. That should be really interesting because we don't know which person is appearing. We have not seen Funhouse Bray Wyatt in the ring yet. We've only seen The Fiend. So not sure what's happening there. And of course, we've got the New Day taking on the Revival for the SmackDown Tag Team titles that I fully expect the New Day to win. And what's interesting about that is Crown Jewel takes place on Thursday. WWE is chartering a plane to get all of that talent back all the way across the world to make it to SmackDown on Friday. That is going to be one tired roster. So they got to fly all the way back to have SmackDown on Friday. That's got to suck. But the Crown Jewel card, as of right now, stands as Brock Lesnar versus Cain Velasquez for the WWE title, Seth Rollins versus The Fiend Bray Wyatt for the Universal title, Braun Strowman taking on Tyson Fury, Team Hogan versus Team Flair, the largest tag team turmoil match in history to determine the best tag team ever, or the greatest tag team ever, or whatever the fuck they're calling it. Stupid match, stupid prize at the end. You're going to be called the greatest tag team ever when you have 2 sets of tag belts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but if you wear a championship, that is supposed to represent the best ever, right? So if you're having a match and the winner gets to be called the greatest ever, what does that say for your 2 tag team champions? It's stupid. We're also getting a 20-man battle royal. The winner of that faces AJ Styles for the United States title. So whoever wins that, I think AJ is going to beat. I think AJ is going to be facing Kevin Owens for the title on the main roster over on Monday Night Raw. So I think that's just a title defense for AJ. He'll probably retain there. And we have local competitor Mansoor, who I think won the Battle Royal at the last show, and he's been training at the PC. Good-looking kid, and he's taking on Cesaro, and we know who's going to win that. Mansoor's going to win that. So if I had to guess here, I'm going Brock to escape with the title. I think Seth will also escape with his title. I think Braun Strowman will lose to Tyson Fury. I think Team Hogan will win. I have no idea who's going to win the Tag Team Turmoil match. Don't care. I don't even know who's in the Battle Royal, so I can't predict the winner there, but I can predict AJ to beat whoever that person is. And like I said, Cesaro is definitely going to be taking the loss. And maybe after that, Cesaro can finally head down to NXT where he can be useful. Let me backtrack here and answer some super chats now that we are all done with my notes. Let me make sure I'm done with my notes. I think that's it. Before I answer those, I'm just slowly scrolling up and making sure there's nothing that I wrote down that I skipped by accident because my notes were about 6.5 pages. I think we got them all in, and we are approaching 2 hours in this podcast. I told you guys it was going to be a solid 2 hours. I knew it would be. Let me backtrack here and answer a few super chats, and I'll see if you guys have any other questions in the chat you want to discuss, and then I'm going to get out of here. Where did we go? Zane, thank you very much, brother, for the $10. You are awesome. Did you see the Randy Orton and All Elite teaser? Your thoughts? If you mean the photo that Randy Orton posted, yes, I did see that. I've read his tweets and all of the teasing about going to All Elite Wrestling. Seen all of that. I don't know if there's something else I missed. But yeah, we talked about that earlier on. And I said that I would love for Orton to go over there. Would love it. That would be such a huge get for them, especially if he's able to take the Revival with him. You know, Orton's been treated very well in WWE. He's a, main star of the more modern era, one of their top guys, but he might be over it. He might be over the travel, and he might be wanting just to chill out and go do something else for a while. I don't blame him. I hope he does leave, or he has no intention of leaving, and he's just using this as bargaining power to get a new contract, because as of right now, his contract is up in the summer. So WWE is going to try to get him to resign, and I love that they're being so vocal. I mean, unless this is just some big plan, unless WWE knows he's sticking around and they're telling him to tease All Elite Wrestling just to get them excited, just to fuck with him, and then he winds up sticking with WWE, I don't know. But I think that there's a chance he could jump ship, and I hope that he does. I hope a lot of this unused, disgruntled talent gets the hell out of there. I hope Luke Harper leaves. I hope the Revival leaves. Anybody else, the WWE's just pissing away. Go to All Elite Wrestling. They'll find something for you to do, for sure. Thank you for another $2, Stone Cold 10X, for that WWE rant. Did I really rant that hard? I guess I did. It's just this company, man. I try not to be like screaming and yelling is so negative or whatever, but there's some things that WWE does that is so ridiculously stupid, even I can't hold it in. Michael, thank you, brother. I shouted you out in the beginning for your patronage on Patreon. I appreciate it. Thank you for the $5. Nakamura said years ago, he signed to WWE so he can work with Daniel Bryan. Yes, I remember that. We've been waiting since then for this match. We have not gotten it yet. So the fact that we're finally getting it now, about time. And at least there's a title belt around one of these guys' waists. So that means a championship will likely be on the line too. Pretty cool for Nakamura too. I was watching the Miz TV segment on Smackdown. I'm like, wow, we have Hulk Hogan and Nakamura in the same ring. Whoever thought they'd see Shinsuke Nakamura and Hulk Hogan in the same ring? I know they've met before, but being in the ring together, they're just in two different universes, So I just thought that was kind of cool to see. I think that just about does it for the super chats, and should probably just about do it for this podcast. Yeah, and I know too, AEW and WWE have things to deal with. AEW's got basketball. WWE's got World Series and shit like that to worry about as well. So there's lots of sports now involved in what both companies are doing, and they could get bumped and shit like that. But, when it comes to the ratings, I think Chris Jericho said it best. Chris Jericho said it earlier this week. He goes, Vince McMahon is a genius for putting NXT up against All Elite Wrestling, because it gave the impression that AEW is minor leagues. It took the attention off the AEW WWE war and put it on NXT and AEW. And WWE moving NXT to Wednesdays takes away from AEW's ratings. Just all about competition. That's just what they do. And they know that fans are frustrated as fuck with Raw and SmackDown. We complain about those on a weekly basis, but we don't do so much complaining about NXT. So it was probably pretty smart and a pretty smart business move to move NXT to Wednesdays so you can make that the focal point and make that the comparison between the two shows. Because as bad as Raw is, it nearly tripled AEW's rating. And let's say NXT wasn't on Wednesday nights. Let's give all 712,000 views, every single person that watched NXT, let's pretend that they watched AEW instead. And let's add that to their rating. That would put them at about a 1.6 for the week, which is still nearly 1 million viewers less than Monday Night Raw. And that's on USA Network too. So even though Raw and SmackDown, and I actually looked for the SmackDown ratings as I was coming up here for the podcast, but as of 3 p.m. Pacific, I did not see them online. So I don't know what kind of numbers SmackDown did, but even when Raw gives us shit, they triple the rating of AEW. So it's not AEW's fault. Raw's been on the air for 27 years. No, wait. Yeah, almost 27 years this January, which is crazy. So yeah, they kind of have a head start there. But AEW, when they launched, they wanted to be competition to WWE, the entire brand of WWE, not just NXT. So WWE, when it comes to competition, they know how to stunt the growth of the people up against them. They're in the driver's seat, they've got all the power, and they can pretty much do whatever they want. And there's also been talk about NXT moving venues, leaving Full Sail starting in January. Meltzer was reporting this week in the Observer that the likely reason why they're sticking around in Full Sail is because they rushed to get the jump on AEW, putting NXT on TV a whole week or two before they did, that they plan to just run Full Sail for the duration of the year and then start exploring other venues in 2020, which I can kind of see them doing that, and I wouldn't be surprised. I just hope that if they do that, they still have shows like special shows or one a month at Full Sail. Maybe one a month would be perfect. Keep one show per month at Full Sail. Maybe your go-home shows to your pay-per-views or something like that. Keep all of those at Full Sail, but then venture out to bigger arenas to where you can maybe try to be on the level of an All Elite Wrestling during some of those other weeks. So that looks like what the future will hold for NXT in 2020. Now, if that is the case and they do keep it to like one show per month, that would be okay, because that really wouldn't be any less than what Full Sail was used to dealing with, because I believe they would tape a month of shows when they were an hour, right? They would tape 4 weeks of TV at Full Sail. So really the Full Sail audience only got to go to the shows once a month. So if they tried to keep that trend and give them one live show per month and go on the road for the other 3, that might be a fair compromise there in maybe changing the setting of NXT. And maybe make Full Sail like your Madison Square Garden. Make that your home base. Make all of your big shows or your special TV events all take place at Full Sail, where it all started. Just like Madison Square Garden in WWE. I would love for Full Sail to become that for NXT in the future. And I hope that agreement that they have with that school lasts forever. I think it's a good venue for them and a good city for them to be in. So anyway, we are going to wrap things up right here at exactly 2 hours into this podcast. I want to thank all of you for hanging out with me today. Like I said, much smaller audience than last week. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully these views will beef up as we go through the weekend here. I appreciate all of the chats, all the kind words, the comments, the super chats, the donations, and the support. You guys are the best. I will be up here in 2 days for Monday Night Raw. Hopefully we'll get a better Raw than we got last week. So come on over at the beginning of Raw to my house on Monday, and we'll hang out and watch this shit together, drink a couple of cold ones, and have a good time. I want to wish you all a great rest of your Saturday and a phenomenal rest of your weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Y'all be good. Peace. I'm still here because I haven't turned the stream off yet. Peace, guys.